Hello and welcome. I am Exelite, and this is my podcast. Today I have as my guest Rob. Hello, Rob.
Hello, Tracy. How are you?
I'm fantastic. How are you?
I'm brilliant. Thank you. I am really looking for. I, I'm really looking forward to doing this podcast today.
I am too. And the topic of the podcast today is necromancy,
Yeah,
which is weird to me because the fact that it has mancy in it, it sounds like romancy. It sounds like it should be something to do with love in the dead people, which is illegal, by the way.
I
I'm off
never
to a
looked
good
at it that
start.
way. Actually, I never looked at it. Romancy. Yeah,
Yeah, it confuses me. Like if I say to people I'm going to do a podcast on necromancy, they're like, "That's weird," and I have to explain what it is. So as a matter of fact, I think I'll do that right now from the get go, so everybody knows what I'm talking about. So the definition of necromancy is this: the supposed practice of communicating with the dead, especially in order to predict the future. It is sorcery or black magic in general, and it is a noun. Seems like it's a verb, but it is a noun. So it's talking to the dead. And now it's like, mediums and stuff, but it used to be dragging the dead out of their graves and reanimating them, right?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. And so we're going to talk about historically how they would do it, how it's talked about in religion, and yeah, how
How it's
weird
still
it
done
is.
today.
Yeah, still doing it today, but now they call it spiritualism, and they don't really. You don't have to go dig up grandpa anymore. You can just
Yeah,
hire somebody to come over and say they're talking to grandpa on the other side.
yeah.
Hire me. I'll talk to your grandpa for cheap. For cheap.
Yeah. You probably could.
I probably could. Uh, so before we get started, let me say this. If you are not already subscribed and you would like to be, please click that button to subscribe. And also, while you're over there, go ahead and give this video a thumbs up. You can always take it back if, you know, you're disgusted by us or whatnot. And nobody's going to hunt you down and yell at you today. So please do that. And then also, if you'd like to be notified when content goes live, you can go ahead and click that bell. And for those of you who have been around longer and are already subscribed, please go ahead and check that bell because I've been hearing from several people that they're not getting the notifications. And Rob himself had his bell unclicked. So go ahead and make sure that you have that bell clicked still so you can be notified.
Yeah,
Is there anything else I was going to say, Rob?
that's everything. I think. Story of my life. I have my bell unclicked. There you go. But it's clicked now, so that's all that matters.
But okay. So let's talk about necromancy. Let's talk about necromancy. All right. I'm going to start with this 10 things you might not have known about necromancy. Okay?
Okay.
All right. Here we go. Witches have used it for centuries, sometimes in gruesome ways. Necromancy is the most commonly associated with witches and witchcraft, since the first century tales of witches using necromancy for power and insight have appeared in urban legends and lore from multiple cultures. Part of this association comes from the belief that witches work with spirits, including those of humans, animals, plants, and the earth itself. which is basically the basis of paganism. Um, working, but it's about the earth and trees and animals and whatnot. One of the more memorable stories is of Sextus, the son of Pompey the Great, who in the first century sought out the help of the legendary Erictho, which I believe you talked about in your video. Is that right?
Yeah, my little 10 minute video. Yeah.
Right. So in that story, there was some wandering about in a battlefield to
Yeah.
find an uninjured cadaver whose neck and lungs would allow him to speak. When she found one, she cleaned out his organs and cut a hole above his heart. She filled the body with a potion of warm blood called lunar poison. And that consisted of hyena flesh, snake skin,
Yeah.
and the foam from the mouths of rabid dogs. Whose job was it to get those?
I know how do you collect the foam from a rabid dog?
How do you do that? It's not like a snake. You grab it by the back of the neck and you put its teeth over a glass. I don't I don't understand. Would you have to get it all riled up and then kill it and then like wipe its mouth out? First off, just touching a rabid dog can give you rabies. So why would you? I don't. Whatever. That's I don't know. I think that might not be true. What do you think?
Rabbit, not just no. You have to be bit by a rabid dog to catch rabies. Not just
Mm-mm.
touching it.
You can touch it, like because they lick their fur and stuff. And bats, if you touch a bat that has rabies, you can get rabies. You have to go get a rabies shot. I watched a documentary on a little girl who. Uh, this is way going off track. She was in the top of a church and she fell to the floor and she landed like I don't know, but she had touched a bat and she ended up having rabies from touching it. And they like froze her or something, stopped her body from working. She was the only person in the whole world who's ever been cured of rabies. And it was in like the last 10, 15 years.
That's the beginning of Batman, isn't it? He never got rabies.
I know. Well, that's true. Anyway, I always told my kids like, if a wild animal, is letting you pet them, they're they're sick. Don't touch them.
Well, I've learnt something this morning.
There you go. So moving on.
Yeah.
Um, you also talked about the rituals being extremely elaborate and involving black magic, right?
Yes, I did.
And that they would wear the clothes of the deceased and even eat corpses.
Yeah. Sit for days and days and days in the graveyard or in the dead person's house. Just oh, it's just not a very nice practice to be doing. There are nicer ways to spend your time. Put it that way.
Yeah, and it was especially disgusting when you think of the fact that they had up to a year, they believed, to perform this ritual. So,
Yeah.
can you imagine nom nom on the grandpa's ugh, dead year-old leg? I did
Can
that
I?
once. It wasn't good.
She's not joking. And the reason they only had a year, I don't know if you was going to mention this next, or can I mention it?
You can mention anything you want.
It's because they believe that after a year, they would only be able to invoke or summon the spirit or the ghost of the person, and they wanted to reanimate the corpse, basically.
Right.
They didn't want to speak. That's where it differs, I think, from other where it differs from other practices, that they were not trying to raise or speak to ghost or a spirit. They wanted to speak to the actual person, whatever
Right.
sort of state they were in. If anyone has seen the film Hellboy with Ron Perlman, who I know you're a fan of Ron's,
Yes, I am.
he digs up this old Russian guy and he reanimates the body. That is necromancy.
Oh. You know, we're going to get into it further about religion and what it talks about in the Bible and stuff. Because I would generally think this is ridiculous. But so many cultures think they have done this, believe in doing this. Is that not weird? Is that not weird? Like, I could go my whole life and not think. I could probably go up and dig up a dead body and reanimate them. It wouldn't even occur to me. But yet,
Well,
we're told not to do that.
I mean, there are cultures that. I mean, we've talked about this before on podcasts. We've talked about it when we've just generally been chatting. There are
Mm-hmm.
cultures around the world who they take their loved ones who have died. Basically, they live with them. They treat the
Yes.
body, and they. I mean, in some ways, is that not similar to necromancy?
No.
Thanks for that.
Well, I don't think so. I
They're
don't think
not
so
trying to.
because they're just trying to. They're just. They're not trying to get the family member to speak. They're just trying to spend some extra time.
Exactly, but they're dealing with a dead body. Maybe someone in the family is speaking for the dead body, and you know.
I could do that. Are you ready? There you go.
No, I'm not. No, no, no. We don't. No one. Nobody wants to hear
I'm
this.
sorry I'm dead. Can I have a cup of tea? Maybe a biscuit? Grandma wants a cup of tea and a biscuit. Thank you. Maybe.
Does Grandma live? Was she living during Mary Poppins days when there was chimney sweeps and? That's what
Maybe.
Grandma sounds like.
Well, Grandma's dead, so she's trying to find her voice. However she has to, Rob.
I know everybody out there who is listening doesn't know what we're talking about. Believe me, you don't want to know. Believe me, it's better off just to plead insanity.
Rob says I creep him out. So
I think you
keep
might.
that in mind. Just keep in mind that Rob says I creep him out when you guys are saying that I pick on Rob. Okay, so non-Abrahamic religions, which like Abrahamic religions would be all forms of Christianity and Muslim religions.
Yeah.
Um, so they, but it's way out there from non-Abrahamic religions. Like it's Voodoo and Santeria. They practice this. I was gonna say religiously. Duh. They practice this as part of their religion. And it's a tradition. So, and it's just widely accepted that that they do. And I've seen all those movies where they do that. I'm just saying. Santeria though is based in Catholicism,
But
so
why
it
is it
is.
getting?
Huh?
I suppose. Well, go on. You to explain Santa because they're still getting tarred with the same brush.
What is
uh, Santa Maria as
Santeria?
as voodoo.
Well, yeah.
Because voodoo, some elements of voodoo, aren't they sort of leaning towards a Christian religion?
Well, I think you're thinking Santeria, which is also called voodoo.
Why are there different ones? Is it? It's a two different or three different types that we're talking about. We're talking about voodoo, Santa Maria, and what's the other one?
I don't know. There's one called Quimbanda. It's an Afro-Brazilian religion. Quimbanda
Uh,
is closely connected to the spirit Pamba Gira, who is the messenger of the supreme and deity of soul possession. Um, but Santeria and Voodoo are very much connected to each other. They have very much the same um, beliefs and traditions and rites, rituals. Santeria is based in Catholicism. It has a lot of Catholicism in it, but that's because the Caribbean was close to the United States. They brought the Afro-Brazilian religions down through that area. It all came together, and they sort of adopted different practices of the
okay,
religion.
right.
So
Okay,
that's why.
clear this up for me then. I was under the impression that voodoo and
Hmm.
anything that's associated with voodoo was brought over from Africa.
Yeah, well, Africa and by way of the Caribbean. So Africans, what they call Afro-Brazilian religions, like the Quimbanda, would be the start of what would be voodoo. But once it gets down here, once it got down to the United States, okay, so voodoo, Louisiana. Well, by the time they got down here, they had Caribbeans and French and Catholics and Italians and Indians, Native Americans. Um, so they incorporated some of this and kept their, original beliefs, and that is voodoo. It's practiced in New Orleans, in Louisiana, to this day.
I was going to say, is it still practiced today, voodoo?
Yes, very much so.
Oh,
It's funny because they have voodoo shops throughout the French Quarter, well, other places too. But I don't, I won't go in. I don't know if it works, but I feel like if you believe it does work, then it does. It's one of those things. Um, and so nobody would take Maya into one. Maya wanted to see the inside of one. And we were like, no, not going to do it, not happening. And then she talked her dad into it because that's how they all do. They go straight to their dad. And so he took her into one, and she said it gave her a terrible feeling. And there was somebody in there asking. I guess there's like the tourist part where you can go and get voodoo
yeah.
dolls and whatnot. And but there was somebody in there asking for something specific to be made for them, and Maya said that it was not good, and it felt bad, and she never wanted to go into one again. Which is interesting because no matter how many times I told her like I'm not going in, I just I know me, I know my energy, and I absorb things. I always say about history, I like to see and touch history so I can feel it, and I don't want to put myself in a position where I absorb anything that's going to rock my boat. And she wanted to go do that, and she felt bad. She felt uncomfortable, frightened of whatever it was. So, I don't know.
Well, I never realised that voodoo shops or shops to do with voodoo were
Uh-huh.
just a normal on the street kind of shop. I thought it would be all
Yeah.
sort of under the counter type things.
Uh-uh.
Oh,
No.
very interesting.
Yeah, but so you can have, voodoo shops, which um most of them are like touristy, but at the front, but they do practice voodoo, so you can request things. And then they have further out where you would go to like somebody's home and you know have something made for you, or have a doll made for you, or a specific prayer for you, or you know maybe you want somebody to have some bad juju. And
Hmm.
there are people who will do that kind of thing. So just don't mess with the voodoo.
No, I wouldn't
That
advise that at all for anyone.
No. And if they're trying to raise your grandpa, just say no. Um so the book of Deuteronomy specifically warns against allowing one's son or daughter to pass through the fire of divine, how is that pronounced? Divination or divination?
Divination, I think.
Divination. Okay. As it was an abomination to the Lord and strictly forbidden. I'm going to come up with that exact verse here in a little while. And even though Mosaic law went on to say that practitioners of necromancy should be put to death, this warning often went unheeded. So this is so strange to me to get my brain around that the Bible says, and so I'm a Christian,
Yep.
and you're a Christian. So it's strange to me that the Bible says that it's possible to perform necromancy. Is that not weird to you?
Say that again, sorry.
The Bible says it's possible to perform necromancy, which is why they forbid it. If you're forbidding something, then it must be possible to perform. So it
Right.
specifically says, do not do this. Do not allow one's sons or daughters to pass through the fire of divination, as it is an abomination to the Lord.
Hmm. Well, could you not? And I'm Christian. You're Christian, and I'm. This is
Mm.
just a question. Could you not even say that the resurrection of Jesus was?
Yeah. Yes.
Could that be what they mean?
So you could not perform.
See, it's difficult, isn't it? It's
Yeah.
really difficult.
If that was an act that only God could do, which is what is supposed to be the miracle of it,
Yeah.
then how are you being forbidden? Um, uh, who else was Lazarus? Was it Lazarus that was?
Yeah.
There's a
And oh, yeah, Lazarus, and there was a little girl as well, weren't there? Or a little boy.
Yes, yeah, the little girl.
Little
I did a story about her. Um,
talked about it at church last week, and I can't remember what her name was. Um. Oh
I
gosh.
can't think of what it is either. So then, therefore, it was it possible that it wasn't just Jesus who could perform these miracles?
Well, yeah, maybe so. I mean, the thing that made Jesus different, I suppose, is because it was in the scriptures, weren't it? That it was foretold that he would die and after 3 days would rise again, and it was foretold in the Bible in the Old Testament,
Right.
and he would be the son of David. The Messiah would be the son of David, and so
Right.
but there obviously Jesus was able to do that,
Right.
and maybe that is why the Jewish leaders and the Sanhedrin and were so against Jesus being able to raise people from the dead,
Right. Right.
because you've got to remember they didn't have the luxury of being able to look back, and it was the New Testament wasn't written as far as they knew.
Yeah. Yeah, it was because it was Jewish law.
Yeah, not for people to be raising people from the dead. So what did they?
Right.
I mean, that
By
was
the way, her
before.
name is Talitha.
Yeah.
Talitha.
Um, what I'm trying to say, that was before Jesus died. This is during
Right.
Jesus'
Oh, I
life.
see what you mean. I see.
Yeah.
Oh, I see. So maybe it was. So what you're saying is that it was possible in the New Testament, and then after Jesus, then it was forbidden
Yeah.
because it's forbidden. But it's forbidden in Leviticus.
Yeah. Because as far as they were concerned, he was just some bloke raising people from the dead.
Right. Right. Yeah. Okay.
He was just. This is getting a bit really deep, but do you get where I'm
I
coming
love it
from?
that you just said he was just some bloke raising people from the dead.
Well, they didn't know. They didn't know, did they? They didn't know that this person was going to be the Messiah.
I
They
know, but isn't that like? Can you even imagine that? Can you imagine that happening today? Like
exactly.
nobody would say, "Oh, that's just some bloke. He raises people from the dead." You would be
Well,
like, "What?"
well,
You know that bloke that lives down the street and around the corner, second house on the right. He raises people from the dead. Oh, and he's a carpenter too. It's so strange, like to be living in those times, to like feel like that was a normal thing. You know what I mean?
well, yeah.
It's so strange.
It
It's
just one of
weird.
his. It was just a miracle. It was one of his miracles. But
Yeah, but other people could do it too.
yeah, with more sinister
Yeah, intentions.
intent.
But were they more sinister though? I I think the way they went about it was not like, well, eating corpses is in general it's not acceptable behavior. Uh, but they were just trying to find out information, right?
They were
They
just
weren't
trying to find.
trying to harm somebody, were they?
They might have been. You never know.
Well, if I saw Grandpa with part of his casket dragging behind him and coming to my door, I would assume there was harm in the intent. Maybe he just missed me. I don't know. Okay. Um, Early necromancy was related to and most likely evolved from shamanism, which calls upon spirits such as ghosts of your ancestors. Classical necromancers addressed the dead in a mixture of high pitched squeaking and low droning noises.
Squeak.
Compare That scared me. That actually scared me.
Sorry.
That was weird. My like skin on the back of my neck was like, "What?"
Squeak, squeak.
and um comparable comparable to the trance state mutterings of shamans. Necromancy was so prevalent throughout Western antiquity, with records of its practice in ancient Egypt, Babylonia, Greece, Rome. Um, that is so strange. The Geographica, in his Geographica, Strabo refers to necromantia, or diviners of the dead, as the foremost practitioners of divination among the people of Persia, and is believed to have been widespread among the peoples of Chaldea, which is they were called Sabians or star worshippers. The Babylonian necromancers were called Manzazu or something else I'll never pronounce, and the spirits they raised were called Etemu.
Called
What?
what? Sorry?
What?
What were they called?
Etemu.
It's easy for you to say.
I would be running. So it seems that it was prevalent all through Persia, Egypt, Babylonia, Greece, Rome. How is this prevalent? How is this possible that it's prevalent? I don't understand. I'm just saying, like, it just doesn't make sense to me that it's like the word, like, it's not like a once in a blue moon thing. It's prevalent. You know, dogs are prevalent in our society,
I
not
mean,
dead bodies walking around.
obviously, everyone was at it.
Yeah, this is gonna sound really strange, which probably won't shock anybody. But I would be interested in knowing if anybody, like, if they were to still practice that in this day and age. Is there any proof that they can do it, or is that like a, I don't even know what to say, a lost art, or were they, was it sort of like putting your hand up their back and
Well,
being their ventriloquist? Whoa, look, I'm Grandpa. I'm so sad. I miss
I
you all.
I have watched. I forgot to mention this, by the way, Chase. So I apologise. I watched a documentary about necromancy
Oh, you did?
ages and ages ago, and one of the things that they do, it's got to be performed in a graveyard, and they dig up a corpse. They take the teeth out of the corpse. They sew the teeth onto the tummy of the person who wants to be who wants to raise the dead, and it's disgusting.
Uh,
And they believe that it does work.
really?
Yeah.
See, if you believe it's working, I wonder, is it, did it work, or was it a sleight of hand? Was it the first magician kind of a thing? So the oldest literary account of necromancy is found in Homer's Odyssey, which, by the way, I didn't enjoy very much. I didn't really enjoy that book, so sorry. Um, and in the Odyssey's passages, they contain descriptions of references to necromantic rituals. Rites must be formed around a pit with a fire during evening hours, and they have to follow a specific recipe, which includes the blood of sacrificial animals, to concoct a libation for the ghosts to drink, while he recites prayers to both the ghosts and the gods of the underworld. Oh, That's some shit you don't want to get into right there.
Yeah. Agreed.
That's practices such as these, varying from the mundane to the grotesque, were commonly associated with necromancy. Rituals could be quite elaborate, involving magic circles, wands, talismans, incantations. They might surround themselves with wearing the person's clothing, like we talked about. They might eat foods that were supposed to symbolize death, which was black unleavened bread. And for those of you who don't know, unleavened bread is something that Christians would use for communion, but not black, obviously. And unfermented grape juice, which is basically grape juice. As opposed to wine. Um, some necromancers went and took, did mutilation and ate things and blah 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 blah. In the book of Deuteronomy, it says this. It explicitly warns the Israelites against engaging in the Canaanite practice of divination from the dead. Uh, Canaanites were help me. What were they called? If you weren't an Israelite, you were a
Oh, I should know this, shouldn't I? You were an
yes.
Israelite. You were a.
Oh no, I can't think. Okay. Huh?
Wasn't Babylonian, was it? Oh,
No, it was like if you were an Israelite, you were Jewish, and then there was Jewish, and then there was um
the
not
Egyptian.
like not like a not like Muslims, but there's something else. I can't. I will either think of it later or I won't. They were called bone conjurers um, among the Jews, and this is what Deuteronomy 18:9 through 12 says. When thou art come into the land which the Lord God giveth thee, thou shalt not learn to do according to the abominations of those nations. There shall not be found among you any who maketh his son or his daughter to pass through the fire, or he who useth divination, or an observer of times, or an enchanter, or a witch, or a charmer, or a consulter with familiar spirits, or a wizard, or a necromancer. For all who do these things are an abomination unto the Lord. And because of these abominations, the Lord thy God doth drive them out from before thee. Wizards? Well, that's where I would have given up. I've been like, but wizards? Uh, Interesting. So were these powers? Were these powers that they had?
It must have been.
They had to have been.
They must
What do
have
you think
been.
about that?
I think that there's no smoke without fire. They must
Yeah.
have. They're not. It wouldn't just be in the Bible if it was just hearsay.
Right. Right. That's right. It seems like it must be common enough to be spoken about in the Bible.
I mean, maybe it wasn't
And
on
not
every.
only the Bible, but like in like Homer's Odyssey, in other writings. That is so strange to me to like wrap my head around. I'm trying to find out what the word I was looking for was, and it's not coming to me, and I can't look it up. So if somebody wants to go ahead and put it in the comments, that'd be awesome. Um, Okay, so even though Mosaic law prescribed the death penalty to practitioners of necromancy in Leviticus 20:27, Leviticus is the exact opposite of the Psalms, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, this warning was not always heeded. One of the foremost examples is when King Saul had the witch of Endor invoke the spirit of Samuel, a judge and a prophet from Sheol, using a ritual conjuring pit. 1 Samuel 28:3-25. However, the so-called witch was shocked at the presence of the real spirit of Samuel. For in 1 Samuel 28:12 it says, when the woman saw Samuel, she cried out in a loud voice. Samuel questioned his reawakening, asking, "Why hast thou disquieted me?" Saul did not receive a death penalty, his being the highest authority in the land, but he did receive it from God himself as prophesied by Samuel. During that conjuring, within a day, he died in the battle along with his son Jonathan. What?
Well, at the end of the day, it's basically, even though the Bible and everything is telling you not to do it, you've got to be of a certain mindset to even want to try and do it.
Right. Well, I. But is that mindset grief?
Well, if you, if you like, you keep joke. I mean, you said saying about raising up your granddad.
Uh huh.
Well, that could be conceived as being grief.
Right.
That can be said to be grief. But these people were trying to raise up people to basically learn things. That isn't grief.
Yeah, they said that, and it's coming up somewhere, that they would raise them up usually to get information that had to do with their what they did for a living. You know, so if you were a lawyer or tax collector or whatever, they would try and get that kind of information from you, things that would that maybe you could see in the future to try and know the future. So it was to benefit them, usually financially, or to have prior knowledge to something.
Yeah.
So they probably weren't just raising up your average everyday farmer, sheep
No.
herder.
Yeah.
Maybe somebody who was in the government in some form, you know, who could tell them, like, if the king would be overthrown or whatever. And also, remember you said in your recording that they also thought that they all gathered to learn gossip,
Yeah.
which is what I'm going to do. I'm going to be like, okay, let's talk about the that thing that happened to JFK. I'm not going to use the word because I'll be caught in a net. Let's talk about that and who did that, what happened. That's what I'm going to be doing.
Right.
So if you want to, like, try and conjure me back up, I'll see if I can get you that info. Don't, though. I don't think it sounds like it's good. So in the medieval times, writers believed that actual resurrection required the assistance of God. Right. They saw the practice of necromancy as conjuring demons who took on the appearance of the spirits or the encapsulated the body. Which I can see why they would think that, right?
I was just going to say that. I can't believe you just. I was just going to say, is it not acting like or trying to be like God?
Right. Yes. Right. Right. Yeah. The practice became known explicitly as Maleficium. Maleficium, like Male, which is, Maleficent, and Malef. So that means bad. And the Catholic Church condemned it. You Catholics. Though the practitioners of necromancy were linked by many common threads, there is no evidence that these necromancers ever organized as a group. Every Friday night, necromancers are us.
What do you mean, you Catholics?
Taking the fun out of everything. Like we're just raising dead bodies. So, so they didn't have an organized group. They didn't all meet at the pub. Have a whatever you guys call beer.
Pint of bitter.
Have a pint of bitter. And talk about raising dead bodies. Um, One noted commonality among practitioners of necromancy was usually the utilization of certain toxic and hallucinogenic plants. Now we're talking. This explains a lot. This is it right here. Plants from the nightshade family, such as,
Deadly nightshade.
um, yeah, black henbane, jimsonweed, belladonna, mandrake, and I also saw one somewhere else that had to do with um, opiates, like
Okay.
poppy. So that explains a little more, right?
So what you're saying, basically, everyone was stoned.
They were so high, they thought they saw ghosts of their grandfather talking to them. That could have something to do with it. Medieval necromancy is believed to be a synthesis of astral magic derived from the Arabic influences and exorcism derived from Christian and Jewish teachings. Arabic influences are evident in rituals that involve moon phases, sun placement, day and time. Hmm. They were high.
Oh, well, that's it.
Practitioners were often members of the Christian clergy, though some non clerical practitioners are recorded. In some instances, mere apprentices or those ordained to lower orders dabbled in the practice. They were connected by a belief in the manipulation of spiritual beings, especially demons, and magical practices. These practitioners were almost always literate and well educated. Most possessed, I think that's the key word right there, basic knowledge of exorcism and had access to texts of astrology and of demonology. Wow, that far back in the Middle Ages, they had texts on demonology?
Yeah.
Cler- wow. Clerical training was informal and university based education was rare. Most were trained under apprenticeships and were expected to have basic knowledge of Latin, ritual, and doctrine. Well, yeah. This education was not always linked to spiritual guidance, and seminaries were almost non existent back then. Well, yeah, of course. This situation allowed some aspiring clerics to combine Christian rites with the occult practices, despite it being condemned in Christian doctrine. What's happening with these Christians right here?
Well, it's like the more educated you became,
Mm-hmm.
the more you maybe questioned certain things,
Yeah,
the
maybe.
more you wanted to maybe look for answers that weren't in the
Yeah.
Bible.
Right, or in the teachings of well, what had been up to that time Jewish law or the teachings of Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
So you would try it out, which makes sense to me. I mean, we all have questions. Everybody has questions, right? You're allowed to have questions. So I don't know. Maybe a group of them get together and they're like, let's see if this works. I wouldn't. I would not. Um, Medieval practitioners believed that they could accomplish three things with necromancy: will manipulation, illusions, and knowledge. This really feels like the beginnings of magic.
Yeah.
It's really, I didn't realize that there was going to be like going to that direction, but it does. It feels like that's how. Remember we were talking about um, uh, ventriloquism and magic and how that had been ventriloquism used to be thought to be demonic.
Demonic magic, yeah.
Yeah, magic. So, and wizards would be, and witches would be a magic. So it feels like this is the rumblings of how magic, sleight of hand, that kind of thing started happening, which is very strange to have your origins in necromancy.
Well,
And
it's got to really have started. I mean, as far as magic is concerned, oh, excuse me, it's got to have. It's one of the things that I found from doing that small video the other day
mm-hmm.
was that it overlapped a lot into witchcraft, into magic, into.
Mm-hmm.
It seems like it could have been the origin and the beginnings of a lot of things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We've talked about this before, that it's really strange, and I think we were talking about it was witches when we were talking about it. How strange it is that things that are so old, like certain aspects of paganism,
Yeah.
using herbal remedies, for instance, are still today around today. And here are these practices like necromancy, which lent itself into uh, help me, what's the word I'm looking for? The ventriloquism, and magic, and how those like are now things for children,
Um,
where they used to be very adult only oriented. You know what I mean? Like they
things
were,
like nursery rhymes and things like that.
yeah, and nursery rhymes too. But like now, if you see a ventriloquist in general, it's probably a puppet, and they would perform shows for kids. Or
Ah,
magicians. Have a
I
magician go to
think
a child's birthday party.
I think I'm getting where you're coming from. Are you sort of going towards the, as far as ventriloquism is concerned, in relation to necromancy? Could you could pretend to be that person if you were a good ventriloquist?
Yeah.
You could pretend to be that person speaking.
Well, yeah, and in ventriloquism, they used to use their stomachs to throw their voice, and it was thought that it was a demon.
Yeah,
It was a demon in the dummy because of the ventriloquist throwing their voice, which would be a form of necromancy because you're raising a spirit from the dead. And remember, the very beginning of ventriloquism, they would use a familiar, so a cat or something. They would use a familiar to act as the like transponder for the dead person. Remember?
yeah,
So it's interesting to me that it starts out in such a dark, dark manner, and like most nursery rhymes, and then ends up somehow landing in the children's section.
yeah.
That's strange. Like what happens today? What do we do today that is like a forbidden, can't, thing looked down upon by nearly everybody, and then 1,000 years from now, it's 3-year-olds are going to be watching it. It's so strange how it kind of evolves. When
Yeah,
I guess what we did was take the power out of it. It's just a magician. But way back, the magicians were people who were using necromancy and trying to manipulate your will or cause illusions.
yeah, yeah. I know I keep saying yes, but I'm agreeing completely with what you're saying.
It says illusions involve reanimation of the dead, or something as simple as conjuring food, entertainment.
What do you say then? Conjuring food?
Yeah, which would be a magic trick, right? Like, hey, look over here. Oh my God, look it, we got a ham. Probably not a ham. I would
Well,
say likely not a ham. We got a
that
lamb,
you could go back to Jesus again
right?
when he fed the 5,000.
Right. Does that feel sacrilegious to do that though?
What, to say that or to do that?
To say that? Are you gonna be okay tonight in your house? Is there lightning in your area?
I'm sure God understands.
He has one or two other things going on right now. It's just okay. So, and then sometimes they would try and use demons to provide information, like we talked about. They might use this information to identify criminals, find lost items, or reveal future events. Because that's what the dead have to do. They're just like, oh my God, it's it's noon and nobody's asked me to find their wallet.
One of the things it did, it's funny you should say that because one of the things that it did say in my research for the other day was bringing the dead back a lot of the time against their will,
Really?
against the dead person or, yeah, against the dead person's will. They didn't want to be brought back.
Well, like we talked up here about um, Samuel said, "Why hast thou disquieted me?"
Yeah.
Hmm. Yeah.
Which basically means, what are you doing, basically?
Why are you bothering me?
I was quite happy being dead.
Yeah. It basically means WTF.
Yeah.
That's that's what it means. Okay, so the rare confessions of those accused of necromancy suggest that there was a range of spell casting and related magical experimentation. It is difficult to determine if these details were due to their practices as opposed to the whims of their interrogators. John of Salisbury is one of the very first examples related um, in by Richard Kiekhaefer as a Parisian ecclesiastical court. There he goes. But as a Parisian ecclesiastical court record in 1323 shows, a group who were plotting to invoke the demon Barra. I don't want to do that. The demon has a name. From inside a circle made from strips of cat skins, were obviously participating in what the church would define as necromancy. Well, if you're getting specific with demon names, don't.
Yeah.
Just leave that alone. Um, a circle made from strips of cat skins.
Ooh.
Sorry, I missed that. Then in the late Middle Ages to the Renaissance era, in the wake of inconsistencies of judgment, necromancers and other practitioners of the magic arts were able to utilize spells featuring holy names without being taken to court or charged with a crime, as any biblical references in such rituals could be construed as prayers rather than spells. They started getting smart. Like, I know there's a way to one up this. Um, Within the tales related in occult manuals are found connections with stories from other cultures' literary traditions. For instance, the ceremony of conjuring a horse closely relates to the Arabic 1001 Nights and the French romances Chaucer's The Squire's Tale, and also bears marked similarities. This becomes a parallel evolution of spells to foreign gods or demons that were once acceptable and frames them into a new Christian context, albeit demonic and forbidden still. But you could throw in a, a holy name. What's the word I'm looking for? Because you're a Catholic, and
Throwing a couple of Hail Marys and Our Fathers.
yeah, but like what are they called? Like if you perform 3 miracles, you are a saint. So maybe throw in a
Saint,
saint's name,
yeah, or a
and
martyr or
then
something.
yeah, you're okay. In the notebooks of Leonardo da Vinci, it is stated that of all human opinions, that is to be reputed the most foolish, which deals with the belief of necromancy, the sister of alchemy, which gives birth to simple and natural things. And I was thinking about the alchemy connection too, because we've talked about alchemy and how alchemy was the beginning of medicine, really. And they were scholars, and you know, it makes sense that people who practice necromancy would be alchemists, people who did experiments to bring a rat back to life and stuff.
Yeah.
And alchemy then veers off into paganism and comes back around full circle to kitchen witches.
Do you think? I mean, I'm probably going to go to hell for saying this.
Probably.
Do you think that as a as a species, as a human race,
Hmm.
we needed to go through this journey, which was necromancy, which was then alchemy, which then turned into medicine, which then turned
Hmm.
into. It was a natural progression, maybe, because obviously
Yeah.
we people still, if you're a medical student, they do a lot of practice. Basically they'll practice on cadavers, won't they?
Yes.
You know, we had. Do you know what I'm trying to say? It
Yeah.
was like maybe we had to go through this journey to get to where we are today.
Yeah. To get to where we are in medicine today. Absolutely. That completely makes sense. There has to be some people. I completely believe this. I think that there okay, people who have anxiety, for instance, not people who get nervous, not
Yeah,
people who are afraid to do something, real honest to God anxiety. I think that's something built in people. Those people used to be the warriors and the hunters. And that adrenaline used to be used for something, and it's not
yeah,
now. And that's why we have sports and cage fighting, boxing, football, or our football, yours too. Competition. You have
yeah,
to have an enemy, so to speak. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think that is what anxiety is for people. If you don't have an outlet for it, you have anxiety. So I think then there are people that were those people. There are people who don't have anxiety. There were probably maybe the gatherers, the caretakers. There are people who are just built to be caretakers, right? Who
Yeah.
their whole lives, all they ever wanted to be is a nurse or doctor, a nun, whatever. And then people who are interested in learning and why does that work that way? And um, the very first people to look into a body and see that there's muscles and bones and how do these connect? And those people who would go through what we now look back on as, you know, or eventually becomes necromancy or alchemy. Those were the people who wanted to be educated. Like I always say, like, well, I always joke, but it's not actually not true. I love that kind of thing, learning about that kind of thing, how something works. I love that. So maybe I was a hunter and could have been an alchemist. But I always say like if I had to figure out how to make a fire, that doesn't interest me at all. Like we probably would never had fire. You know, I if there would have been a lightning strike, and maybe I would have lit some more branches on fire, and then for the rest of the ages, we would have had to keep this fire lit, or we'd be screwed. Or a wheel. Like somebody was like, "There's got to be an easier way."
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that we had to go through that, and we're still doing it, still doing learning. Who knows where we'll end up? I hope it's not reanimating bodies. But look, we have people who have their heads frozen in case that does happen.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's the ultimate necromancy, right?
It is. Some people who, yeah, cryogenically frozen who one day hopefully have had cancer and they want to carry
Yeah.
on living and they can afford it.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's the ultimate necromancy.
Yeah, it is. Wouldn't that be a strange coming around full circle from pre-biblical and biblical times to sometime in the future where you can cure the cancer, bring the person back.
Yeah,
Maybe that's where we're headed, Rob.
that's it. I think yeah, I agree 100%.
This is very interesting. I thought this was going to be a more kind of laid back, silly topic, but it's interesting,
Mm.
I think. So, you have anything else you want to say about necromancy, Rob?
I think we've covered everything, really.
I really enjoyed this.
Yeah, it's been really good. It's gone in a direction that I didn't think it was going to go in, but
I know. Me too. I said to you, let's do necromancy. It'll be funny. Okay, forget that. Weird. I've enjoyed it. It was more scientific and historical, and I liked it very much. Thank you, Rob.
it's fine. Thank you.
Thank you for letting me talk your ear off. Sorry I woke you up today.
Oh, it's fine. It's fine.
Well,
I'm used to
if
it.
I know, don't tell them that I call you every morning. Good morning. You don't even need an alarm clock. Good morning. It's 7.
The worst part is you're all happy and because you've been awake for ages, and then it's like, Morning.
Yes.
And you go, oh no, is it morning? Please let it not be morning.
You're right. You're right. And then when I hear your voice, you're like, and I'm like, I'll call you back. Then by the time you call me back, you're like, you sound knackered.
Oh,
Well, thank you. I appreciate this.
no, not at all.
And again, a reminder, please, if you're not subscribed and you would like to be, go ahead and click that subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. And if you'd like to be notified of future content when it goes up, go ahead and click that bell. I would appreciate it. It's good for my channel. Leave comments. Tell us what you think. We'd love that. I love answering and talking to you guys and seeing what you think of our content. So,
Love it.
I love it. I love it. Hey, by the way, Rob, I have a story coming up that I'm going to have to dedicate to you because you helped me think of it accidentally.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. All right, guys. I appreciate you coming here. Share this video if you'd like. Share any of my videos if you'd like to. That is really awesome for my channel as well. And I will say good night.
Good night.